Thank you so much for attending this digital town hall this afternoon. We have 1 hour with you, and we're so pleased to welcome our special guest today, Tamara Jansen, Member of Parliament for Cloverdale-Langley City, and Kerry-Lynne Findlay, Member of Parliament for South Surrey and White Rock. Each of them will have a presentation, and I want you to start thinking about questions you want to ask them. Please put them in the chat function and I will get to them. If we're not able to get to them within the time frame that we have, we'll respond to you after the session is over. I'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we are here and gathered on is the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, Semiahmoo, and Tsawwassen First Nations. I'd like to thank the Port of Vancouver for their sponsorship of our digital town hall series since the pandemic started in March. We've had over 100 digital town halls, if you can believe it, at the Surrey Board of Trade. And just a little bit about the Surrey Board of Trade. Our whole mandate is to support business, bring business into the city. There's 450 chambers of commerce, boards of trades in our country. And we're very pleased to be one of the top 10 largest chambers of commerce, boards of trades. And certainly last year, we won an award through our national head office, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, for our government advocacy work. I wanted to let you know that we're one of 9 organizations as part of the Premier's Economic Recovery Task Force. And yes, BC's Economic Recovery Plan is going to be released very shortly. We formed a Surrey Economic Recovery Coalition with a variety of organizations within our city, meeting with the City of Surrey every week with their emergency response team during the pandemic. And we have a direct line right into the Prime Minister's office to also let his team know about gaps and opportunities related to the pandemic, and more specifically as it relates to our economy and our business community. Surrey is going to be the largest city in British Columbia very soon, and we have so many assets to be proud of. And I know all of you are just so proud to be members of the Surrey Board of Trade and to be doing business within our great city. I also encourage you to take a look at the Surrey Pandemic Business Center, our rapid response business center, providing on-the-ground business support at businessinsurrey.com. The Surrey Board of Trade is here for you. Now, I wanted to, first of all, introduce our guest speakers. The first speaker that's going to speak before we get into the questions in this town hall is going to be Kerry-Lynne Findlay. And of course, she is a seasoned member of the political environment, and we're so pleased to be working with her again. She is, again, the Member of Parliament for South Surrey White Rock. And Kerry-Lynne, over to you.
Well, thanks, Anita, and thank you, Tamara, and all that are here with us today. Thank you to the Surrey Board of Trade, of which I am a member. I'm a member actually twice, as a lawyer and as a member of Parliament. And your continued advocacy and vision forward way of looking at things, I think, is very much appreciated by all of the business community in Surrey. I know your reputation is in high regard, and that is in no small part to your CEO, who I know works tirelessly and is on top of the issues. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today and with my colleague to talk to you about business from a federal point of view, and whatever your questions may be later. I do have a presentation to share on screen, and so my assistant Mikhail is going to help me by putting that up on the share screen. Aren't you, Mikhail? You're there somewhere. And just to sort of get us started here. So that's me on a good day saying hi. Next slide, please. When I say that small businesses are the backbone of our community, I really do mean that. I was formerly the Minister of National Revenue, and I was also formerly on Treasury Board federally. So I know firsthand what it's like to govern from a perspective of small business, to always be looking through a small business lens. How does this regulation affect small business? What is the cost to small business? Tax structures and that sort of thing. So you'll just see there some of my work in the community over the last couple of months. We are trying very hard in this time of COVID-19 restrictions and also recovery from that to make sure our businesses are back open, to understand what their challenges are, and to frankly promote them, because I want all of our community to know that these great businesses are open for business, want to see you again, want you to return, and offer such a wide variety. Well, really everything we need is here in this wonderful community of ours. So everything from treats and chocolates to home decor and restaurants and pet food stores and everything in between, hair salons. You know, we have different protocols. We have to do things differently, but we do want to see our small business community recover and recover well. I am very concerned about those. We've lost a few already, and very concerned about those that are trying to open up again, who are really struggling, and some are struggling more than others. So in the next slide, I just wanted to highlight a few of the difficulties I've been hearing about. And this may pertain to some of you. Some people have had difficulty accessing the programs that have been available. On the Conservative side of the House, which we represent, we took a Team Canada approach, as I think you should do whenever there is a crisis. And in that Team Canada approach, we have support for individuals and business owners and workers during this difficult and actually unprecedented time. Having said that, we also recognize that no system is perfect, and also we've had quite a bit to say of how we thought certain programs might be better. Some of those were adopted and some have not been. So these are some of the concerns and problems facing the people I've been talking to. Difficulty accessing the CECRA program. That's the rent relief, commercial rent relief program, because landlords have not wanted to join into that program, that the application process for it is too complicated. Certainly we've heard a lot from employers on the difficulty of rehiring, both part-time and full-time, often due to CERB. There are many workers out there who've said CERB is enough for me and I don't need to work, I don't want to work. Or they've only agreed to come back to work if the employer compromises themselves, maybe pays under the table or something, which the ones we talked to certainly didn't want to do. They didn't want to get into that kind of trouble. And yeah, it's made restaffing and rehiring, even not new hires, people who were working before, it's made it very difficult. Many businesses have had to reduce their hours and partially shut down even now due to staff shortages. So even though they think they could be back up and running in some form, they have not been able to access the staff to do it in the normal hours. Difficulty accessing the SEBA program as well. Restaurant owners unable to operate at full seating capacity. They find their fixed costs are the same. It depends on where you're located, of course, but I've heard lease rents anywhere from $3,500 up to $20,000 a month. That's a lot of money to come up with before you sell your first pizza or your first meal. And that is causing many difficulties. Shortage of supplies, some of them they're COVID related delays. The supplies just haven't come in. There were severe delays with the Canada Summer Jobs program. It was very difficult for businesses to hire, and there was some confusion around it. some people couldn't go forward, then others opened up, and it seemed to be an ongoing thing throughout the whole summer. Some business owners have felt they have not received the support they needed. Others have had difficulty accessing PPEs due to shortages. And that's not just business owners, that might be seniors' homes or others. I know we have a supply of the disposable masks at my office for anyone who wants to drop by and get one. And it's not an easy thing. We've also delivered masks, but there's shortages. And then of course, some owners that just simply weren't eligible for any of the relief offered, either because they're a new business or they didn't quite meet whatever the threshold was, or their applications have been rejected without a lot of good explanation. So there's a lot of that happening. Next slide, please. So how have we responded to the economic response plan of the government that's been out there? As I mentioned, we took a Team Canada approach, which I think is a very constructive approach, but we have also put forward a number of solutions to improve government programs and policies. These have included significantly increasing the wage subsidy from the original 10% to 75%, expanding the eligibility criteria for CEBA so that more business owners can access the $40,000 loan, including adding credit unions. But I want to say there that I've found it concerning that a number of the businesses I've spoken to who have applied have received back a response saying they didn't have adequate documentation or their documentation wasn't clear, but no indication of what documentation they're missing or what was unclear about it, leaving them to have to figure that out on their own or speculate without a real person to talk to. So that's been a struggle, and some people are still working through it. Expanding the commercial rent assistance to include landlords without mortgage properties, but also advocating that either in some or all cases that relief should really be one that the tenants apply for, because by giving it to the landlords, particularly if they're not interested or just don't feel it's viable for them to participate, it leaves the tenant, particularly legally, and my background is as a lawyer, legally leaves them in a very tenuous situation. Whereas if the rent relief was given to them directly, they could meet their rent or lease obligations, and then it seems to me that would be a lot better way to go. Making the CECRA program more flexible, allowing landlords to negotiate the unsubsidized half of the rent with their tenants. We've talked about a sliding scale for businesses with less than 70% revenue loss that have experienced significant revenue decline. There are some businesses I've heard from where particularly the owners, maybe a husband and wife or family members, have had to lay off staff. They've kept going, tried to stay open, and they've got a 50% drop in revenue or even 60%, which means they're not eligible and would have helped them get some of that staff back and get them back sooner. And then expanding the eligibility criteria for CERB, so more Canadians qualify for it, but administering it more responsibly to ensure eligibility is met and that those who have work to return to are encouraged to do so. Right now, we have the problem of it being a disincentive. Also, because the government wanted to get it out fast and because they just said apply no matter what, don't really worry about looking at the eligibility too carefully, that I am concerned about. I think that means that there are people out there who are going to be shocked to find not just that they're paying taxes on that relief, but they may in fact have to pay it back. Next slide. So one of the programs we came up with was called the Back to Work Bonus. And basically in the summer, we presented this to Canadians, which was what would you say, sort of an option with respect to CERB to make it more flexible, more generous. But I would emphasize mostly more flexible, that it would allow people to make some money and have the CERB and have it more as a bridge financing. Because under the program, the way it's set out, basically if you earn $1 over the $1,000, you can lose the $2,000 in CERB. And that has many people not wanting to even look at a hybrid plan for back to work. Next slide. Essentially, we have always believed that it should pay to work. In other words, it should be the best option, the best course of action. And therefore, we tried to apply a common sense policy that would give workers the support they need to transition back into the workforce and ensure that local businesses are able to fill shifts, get back on their feet. Canadians who lost their jobs through no fault of their own during the pandemic would have been able to continue to receive their full $2,000 CERB benefit. Next slide. In addition, as businesses reopen, workers who've been making between $1,000 and $5,000 per month would have been able to qualify for the back to work bonus. So it's essentially a CERB top-up that would gradually phase out and allow both the phasing in of work, would allow workers to get back to work, would allow owners to be able to plan better what their recovery looks like. Next. As you all know, we have a new leader in the loyal opposition in the Conservative Party, and that is Aaron O'Toole. And he's someone we all will be wanting to introduce you to even more. But as part of his Save Small Business plan, he talked about expanding the emergency business account to extend loans and operating grants based on employment and economic activity. Larger grant portions would be available for small businesses who were missed by the CEBA program due to payroll considerations. Also introduce a new hire incentive, which is providing a reduced EI premium for all SMEs for any increase of $50,000 in insurable earnings over the previous tax year to promote hiring. Also make it easier for small businesses to use the legal tools currently only available to larger businesses to reorganize and be able to survive. And that's what we want. We want you to survive and then thrive again. So introducing temporary COVID-19 amendments to the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act and the Companies Creditors Arrangement Act. And this would be to facilitate the restructuring of as many businesses as possible to preserve jobs and economic activity and permanently amend these acts to address the cost barriers that exist to successfully reorganizing under those acts. And then provide interim and exit financing through the Business Development Bank of Canada to permit insolvent businesses to reorganize. So we recognize that everyone is not going to come through this the same way or in the same process. And we want businesses to be able to not only get back open, return to the way they were, but if they can't exactly return to the way they were, we want them to have a full toolkit of options to do that. So with that, I know there's going to be lots of questions. There's how to reach me. Certainly if you're in South Surrey White Rock, or if I can help you generally in any way, that's how to get hold of me or to follow me online. And I look forward to hearing what my colleague Tamara has to say and hearing your questions later. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kerry-Lynne, and Tamara, over to you.
Oh, no, not. Am I off mute? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, Anita, for getting this organized, you and your staff. This is very much appreciated. We have, like Kerry-Lynne has said, been getting out into the community and especially into the business community because we know that they're really struggling with the challenges that COVID has put in their way, starting obviously with closing, and then the reopening has been a real challenge as well, learning how to put in protocols that will keep their customers safe. And I think the really big concern that everybody has is, well, now we're reopened, but what assurances do we have that we won't be closed back down again? And Anita, I think you talked about it really, really well. I believe it was yesterday, you know, the closure suddenly of banquet halls and nightclubs, and you know, shutting down an entire set of businesses based on some bad actors. So you know, it's a real concern for all sizes of business. You know, what does it look like as we try to deal with September, October, November? You know, whether weather's going to make us all go back inside. We're opening up, schools are opening up, and what will we be looking at as business owners in regards to assurances that we'll be able to continue working? I've been out talking to a lot of different restaurants as well. I know the numbers have come out that they don't expect that. I think they were saying they were actually expecting that 60% of restaurants may not open their doors again coming up by November, which is a very scary thing, because you know, the beauty of our communities is the kind of diversity that we have out there in all these small places, especially considering a lot of us start our careers dishwashing or bussing tables or things like that. So I've been super concerned about the smaller restaurants, and I'm trying to, on my own Facebook, encourage people to get out, that there are protocols in place. Our small businesses, whether it be dentists or salons or restaurants, are putting things in place to keep you safe. I do think there's a lot of fear out there, which is going to be a real challenge to overcome. A lot of our messaging right now has been about the cases rising, and you know, it creates a lot of fear. So the presentation I'm going to do is kind of like a little bit more about, you know, what's the job situation looked like over the pandemic, and what does it look like right now. So if you could move to the next slide. So right here we see a graph of what employment looked like back in February and where we're at right now. So a bit of a snapshot there of what the pandemic looked like on our jobs. And obviously we started around with approximately 20 million jobs there. And the biggest losses, of course, we had in April when the governments began to force those business closures. Of course, we didn't know what we were dealing with, so there was very little else to do but kind of take that path. But now, as we are beginning to better understand COVID-19, we are being able to better understand who's at risk, how can we mitigate those risks. So that's obviously the, you know, the province has allowed things to open up, and you know, schools being open is a big one as well. But if you take a look at the August numbers, it's a bit of a scary number there. We have over a million missing jobs as of August, and that's a big number. But let's break that down now into part-time and full-time. So if we can go to the next slide. So here we see part-time numbers. So when we began back in February, there's approximately 3.6 million part-time jobs. And you know, following the slow reopening in August, that number had crept back up to 3.4 million part-time jobs. So basically showing a loss of about 138,000 part-time jobs. Now, if we could go to the next slide. So here we see a graph of full-time jobs, which when we began, we're at about 15,600,000. So back in February, that's where we were for full-time. And now here we are in August, and we're only at about 14,600,000 jobs back in action. So that means we have 960,000 full-time positions that have been lost over that period of time, which is, it's a very big number to have to look at. If we go to the next slide here, we look at our unemployment numbers, and you can see that back in February, we were at about 1.1 million. And obviously in May, we hit our max over there at close to or just a little bit over 2.6 million. And now we're at about 2 million in August. So those are some very big numbers that all of our citizens are having to face. Now, if we go to the next slide. There we go. So here we have a slide where we're looking at debt to GDP numbers, and second quarter GDP comparisons, my apologies. And so starting from 2014, and we're showing an average of around a 1% growth, kind of an average there, until 2020, when you see that absolutely shocking decline of almost 12%. So obviously COVID-19 has hit us very, very hard. So next slide. So here we're looking at debt to GDP trajectory and comparing it over the last 60 years. This year's rate, we're at the 50.97% compared to the high of the mid-80s of 73.6%. Now, don't forget, there was a morning back in the 80s when we woke up to find out. Can you hear me?
You're not coming out clearly, Tamara. Just wondering if there's a voice adjustment that you could make, or a volume adjustment.
Does this help a little bit?
No, no, not yet.
It's very choppy. I see somebody saying that. Let me unplug this and try.
No.
I think I'm a bit frozen. How's that? Is that any better?
It's still the same, but you'll have to continue.
Okay. Shall I try without the headphones for a second? Do you want to see if that works better?
It's good when you hold it like that.
When I hold it like this. Okay. Okay. So here we're looking at the GDP trajectory, and from over the past 60 years, and you can see that this year's rate, we're at 50.97 compared to the high of the mid 80s, which is 73.6%. So don't forget that one morning back in the 80s, we did wake up to find out there wasn't a lender out there in the world market who wanted to loan us another dollar, which at that time led to sky-high interest rates, which really crippled our economy and put a lot of businesses out of business. So it's a very scary jump that we see there. So next slide. Okay, so here we have this is looking at our deficits here, and you can see where there's a lot of different. When we go through different calamities, we really struggle, and what our current government is counting on, of course, is low interest rates to get us through this crisis. But it's a real challenge. Sorry, can you hear me?
Maybe try it without the headphones tomorrow.
Better?
One moment, everyone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Excellent.
Okay, well, let's see if it's actually much better. I don't know. Okay. So you can see some pretty scary numbers there. You can see that our deficit now is comparing to what was happening in World War II. So that's something that I think that any government should be looking at very, very carefully to see, well, what are we going to do to make a difference? So next slide. Can you hear me, David? Okay. So here we see the crisis deficits that we were working on. You can see, World War I at the 8.99, Great Depression, World War II, and you can see the global recession was one of the smaller ones, but the COVID-19 is now at -17.80. So these are incredibly shocking numbers.
that any recovery plan is going to have to really work hard to deal with, because we have borrowed as if we were in a war, and we were not in a very good position when we started out. So we need to make sure that we're not going to find ourselves in a jam where someone is suddenly not going to lend us any money. Sorry, my apologies. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay. Okay, so my apologies. I think that I have an extra slide in here somewhere. So here we go. I think this is an incorrect slide. Can you go to the next slide, please, David? So what the concern is that where we're at right now, the current government is counting on lower interest rates to get us through the crisis, but it's very possible that we will find ourselves in this position like we were back in the early 80s, where we didn't have a lender that was confident enough to loan to Canada. And if we just look at a 1% interest rate hike, that will be a $12 billion yearly extra expense on that, on our deficit. And if we actually even had a 4% interest hike, which, I mean, in my lifetime, we were at the 18 and the 21%, a 4% interest hike would amount to $42 billion. That would be the total Canada Health transfer amount for 2021. So counting on low interest rates when we are looking at the kind of numbers that we're looking at is a very scary proposition. So can we go back to the next one there? Yes, thank you. So if we look again at this debt trajectory that we're on here, especially considering the rumors that we're hearing about how the government intends to tackle economic recovery from COVID-19, we're hearing about shocking additional spending based on the belief that interest rates will remain at their current rate. So we started this out without a rainy day fund. I know that Mr. Morneau didn't believe in rainy day funds, and he was even taxing us for having rainy day funds. And I guess they assumed it would never rain, and now here we are in a typhoon with no umbrella. So next slide. So we've seen a lot of people that are beginning to really sound a warning. And here's a quote from John Iveson about Trudeau's very literally frightening spending plan. This government may well be embarking on a major policy shift without any concern for the deficits. So it's a very scary trajectory that we were on already. And now if we are going to continue on spending, where are we going? So the next slide, please. Our current parliamentary budget officer also says that without a doubt, we cannot sustain deficits of over 300 billion for more than a year or two. It's just not sustainable. So this is very concerning, the trajectory that it appears that the Liberals are considering going on. And I would love to hear your thoughts on how you think that we should prepare ourselves to head into recovery mode. Like, is the rumors that we're hearing, are you thinking that they're going to be a successful method of recovery? And, you know, if you have some solutions on proposals of what we should be doing going forward, that would be wonderful. I'd love to hear those. So for ourselves, I'll just finish off quickly. We are proposing, obviously, a Canada First economic strategy. And basically, we believe that we need to depend on ourselves. So stand on our own 2 feet as a country, rather than bringing in all of the sorts of things that we need, like medicines and PPE from other countries. I think that we've seen that didn't work very well. And whatever our plan is, we can't just be for the elites and special interests. We need to look towards small and medium-sized businesses, which, as Kerry said, they're the lifeblood of our communities. And a good example, of course, of how the government just bypassed those small, medium-sized businesses was actually that rent relief program, which clearly didn't function, and they've not fixed it. I mean, even though they've extended it now, they haven't fixed it either. So that's very frustrating for many small businesses that I have gone out and met with. And we don't see the government making changes that are helpful. And Canada also needs to help industries which are the hardest hit like tourism and food services. The service industry in general, really they need help to get those jobs back. You know, maybe we need educational projects to help Canadians feel more confident to get back out again, because there is, as I was saying, a true heightened fear for going out and living as we used to. But we can, in the new normal, do it safely. And I wonder if maybe the government needs to really focus on helping people feel more comfortable that yes, the protocols are in place and we are doing what we need. Because, I mean, we've got tracing and tracking. We knew that was necessary. It's in place. Just give people the tools that they need to get out safely. So thank you very much for your time. I'm sorry about my sound. I don't know what was going wrong. I guess I plugged in just after an airplane flight. Maybe I juggled something during the flight.
Thank you so much to you and to Kerry-Lynne for your very comprehensive presentations. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll post those on our website at businessinsurrey.com in our speakers section. But I wanted to go directly in the time that we have to our audience questions before we go to the Board of Trade questions, and out of respect for those that are attending today. So I'm going to go back and forth between first Kerry-Lynne and Tamara to respond to each question, please. So what is your perspective? You spoke about national numbers related to economic consequences. Well, what about your perspective on BC job losses? And today's quarterly fiscal update was presented by our finance minister. And certainly British Columbia is faring well than other provinces, but we have a long way to go towards economic recovery and supporting our business community. What's your perspective on the BC scene? Kerry-Lynne. We can't hear you.
Sorry, forgot to unmute. Love Zooming. I was just going to say, you know, I'm a BC born and bred person and was self-employed for many years as a lawyer before going into politics. So I appreciate the struggle that is here. And of course, BC is not immune. In some ways, we seem to be doing a little better than other places. And Tamara can attest this as well, because our job takes us into Ottawa and back home, and there's more lockdown, if you will, in Ottawa than we see here, but it's significant here, obviously. I would say that generally, though, BC has been doing comparably fairly well. That doesn't say much to the individual who's struggling, but we do seem to have been at least on top of the health issues. And I worry when I see increased closures once people feel we're starting to open up, and then we seem to be sliding backwards. You know, our health officers have a job to do, and it's an important job to do, and we need them to be on top of that. We started out with a situation that I think was based just on modeling, and we didn't know a lot about it. We've come to know a lot more. But it is up to politicians and those supporting legislation or wanting to change it, like boards of trade, to try and bring some balance, I would suggest, between economic downturns and health considerations. All of this really should be, I believe, through a risk analysis, benefit analysis, because otherwise, I don't really see how we can come upon a plan that we can agree with. I think our government here in BC seems to have been doing a fairly credible job, and we may have an election on the horizon, so the people will speak on that. But I'm very concerned, not just about job losses here in BC, but very concerned about the other effects, like our rise in opiate deaths. I have a real concern about bankruptcies. They say spousal violence is up here and around the country. There's issues related to these restrictions and the pressures and stressors that are having a human negative human effect. We are social animals after all. I always like to say it's social distancing, not emotional distancing. But, you know, sometimes one just sort of begets the other. So here in BC, I think we have to be careful, but I also think we need to understand that there are ways to incentivize people to work, ways to incentivize businesses to open up. I think we cannot also be too hard on people who are trying their best and doing things in a respectful way. So it's a balance, and I think that's what we're all struggling to find, that proper balance.
Absolutely, I agree. Tamara, your perspective on British Columbia.
Well, 350,000 jobs lost is a massive number, and it's a tremendous concern. And I think that we definitely need to target support. For instance, tourism. I mean, we're heavily tourism slanted, so we need to make sure that those sorts of jobs are taken care of. I think the other really big challenge, a lot of businesses do not have any security because the rules change constantly, right? So you have no idea, am I going to be closed tomorrow? If one of my employees gets sick, am I going to have to shut down? And so I think if we could get more consistent guidelines by which companies can run. I know I visited a spa, and they were just saying how it's so difficult because if someone wakes up with a sniffle, they actually have to phone in and say, I can't come to work, and they have to isolate till they can prove that they don't have COVID. So one thing I think which is very important is that we get rapid testing. I was on a Zoom call a couple weeks ago, or it might have been a week ago, and they were talking about this new spit test that you could do, and it was a rapid test, and Health Canada had decided they weren't going to allow that, whereas it's being used elsewhere. And fortunately, some of the medical professionals said, no, we need this. You need to look at this again. So I guess there was something in the paper on Sunday, and by Monday, Health Canada said, well, maybe we will reconsider. Because how do we open up if it's, you know, someone actually, they get a sniffle and they have to wait for a COVID test, or they have to isolate for 2 weeks? It's just impossible. So number one, we have to find a way that we can figure out how to get people back into work.
Kerry-Lynne, you know, with all of the government supports that are currently in place to help our business community, and more specifically our small businesses, what will happen when those government supports run out at the end of the year? And we know, we heard recently from the federal government that other supports may come into play in early 2021. But there's so many businesses that have leveraged assets, or they need to repay loans, but not enough revenue is coming in as a result of physical distancing measures. What is your response to that? Are you worried about what's going to happen next year when these government supports run out?
I'm very worried about it, frankly, because there's all kinds of business models out there. They're as varied as the number of people who are entrepreneurial and who create businesses and create work. And we have lots of different systems at play. Not everything fits into a box, a bureaucratically defined box. And we must get back to a place where these subsidies don't exist. We have to, or we will collapse as an economy. Therefore, what I think business is looking for, and Tamara touched on this, is some degree of certainty. There's a lot of uncertainty. We have programs that are announced, but then it takes weeks and even months for them to be implemented. It sounds great when someone goes in front of a camera and says, hey, I'm going to help you. But we found, as all this rolled out, that in fact, often the announcements and when we could actually help people or assist them to get that help, there was a huge, a huge gap in time. The whole issue of a pandemic creates, of course, uncertainty in and of itself. I understand that. We talk about, is there a second wave? Isn't there a second wave? But we know a lot more about it now than we did at the beginning. The early modeling was way out of whack as far as the actuals, and but it's been tough. It's hard, and so I think that although we may not have certainty around the virus itself, what we can do is give people more certainty about what it would look like in coming back into prosperity. Among those is the plan I mentioned when I started, which is to provide some sort of bridge for back to work, where people know they can calibrate it and they will have some help, because we can't have just hard and fast thresholds that so many people don't necessarily meet. We need to be more fluid, more agile than that, in my view, with policy.
Thank you. Tamara, do you have a perspective on that too?
I think that we just need to really target programs. Certain industries managed and certain ones did not. So we got to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're actually helping the industries that really need our help. Obviously, service industry being one. I don't know if anybody noticed it, but a bunch of restaurants, including Boston Pizza, Jim Treliving, they've got a project out where that's, I think, ourrestaurants.ca, and what they're saying is there's two things you can do to help us. One is go out and have a meal, and two, call your MP. So I think whatever riding you're in, call your MP and let them know that, you know, the food service industry is obviously hit hard, and there's just so many, like she says, one size does not fit all, and we need to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're giving those businesses the support as long as they're going to need them, because let's not forget, this was government induced. You know, I mean, yes, it was COVID, but the government is the one that shut everybody down. So now we have to carefully and slowly help people get back into business. So I'd like to see targeted programs that really make sense, that have common sense to them, that are easy to use, easy to access, and truly give some certainty to every small business, so that they're not, I mean, they're borrowing from their RRSPs, or, you know, like the way that they're getting money right now, it's a scary thing. I'd like to see the government support them so that they can continue on getting open. We don't want this forever. No business wants it forever. They love to be independent. That's why you get into business. You want to be your own boss. You want to do your own thing. So let's move out of here, but target these things carefully.
Kerry-Lynne, two areas of the economy around economic recovery to instigate job creation are around infrastructure investment, around resource investments. What do you think needs to happen in that regard as it relates to economic recovery?
Well, I think we have our infrastructure needs right here in Surrey, of course, and on the peninsula. And one of the criticisms I had even before COVID hit was that the infrastructure programs simply don't roll out fast enough. They're not agile enough, and they need to be that, and they can be that. You don't need to be as mired in bureaucracy and red tape as they seem to be. And there's all kinds of federal provincial partnerships, but federal municipal partnerships, federal municipal provincial partnerships, there private sector partnerships, all these things are possible and doable to get the infrastructure we need. Here in Surrey, I really wanted to see a SkyTrain extension go through Surrey out to Langley, and then I'd like to see from that spine that's created a SkyTrain that can get down into South Surrey at some point. We have, in the last election, we committed to funding the tunnel replacement for the Massey Tunnel. Now I realize that's in Delta, but I mean, most of us in Surrey feed through that tunnel at some point, and sometimes more than once a day. And it's very relevant to us in the movement of goods and people to get through and across the Fraser River. Just because we choose to live south of Fraser doesn't mean we don't ever want to cross it. So, you know, these sorts of things are so important. Now, I mean, we're in Surrey talking about this, but a lot of us and in my riding is the White Rock Pier. That needs $10 million to get that pier fortified. It's open again. It killed businesses when it was closed, but we're still waiting to see on that. And it was promised with the last administration. So a lot of people would like to see a 24th Avenue interchange off Highway 99 so we can get in and out of all that new development in Grandview and those new shops and businesses there. So, you know, with infrastructure, the money is there, the money can be targeted, and the money can be released. Even in times of COVID, we look outside where I'm living, you know, there's road improvements going on. So life can be a little difficult getting in and out of here. But the point is, you know, those crews are working. They can work in a healthy way. They're doing it. So we should, I think this is one way to stimulate. It's also a job creator, but more than that, it's a future creator. We need to have the infrastructure in place to get us goods and services where we need to go.
And Tamara, you know, same question, but I just wanted to preface that we were part of a significant economic recovery policy document that really focused on the resource sector, forestry, lumber, LNG, and as being a forum and a pathway towards economic recovery. What's your perspective on that?
Yes, absolutely. We should be using our natural resources to help us get back out of the challenges that we're in. They're there, and we can do it in a very clean and green way. We have incredible technology that ensures that we're using all of those resources, and we're doing it in a environmentally careful way. So why would you not use those resources that you have right at hand, and that will create jobs, help us create prosperity, in all the right places. So 100%, I love the document. Let's see us move forward.
If I could just comment on that, Anita, too, you know, these are foundational industries. This is how we built Canada in the first place. To deny that now, or to leave projects in the ground, particularly when we need to go into a full-blown recovery, is folly in my view. We have to look to our resource sectors and the revitalization of them, and we should be making things easier, not harder. Most of those, as Tamara just said, most of those companies that are involved in our natural resources are some of the leading edge people when it comes to green and clean tech. They're the investors in it. What we have in Canada is a huge energy potential to create our own prosperity again, but also to help the world. And we should be using it.
And I also wanted to mention that there's about 180 Surrey companies that are providing goods or services to mining companies, to British Columbia and the rest of the nation. So Surrey should never be forgotten when it comes to our natural resource sector. My last question to both of you, in the interest of time, is the Surrey Board of Trade. We have been huge advocates for a rehaul of Canada's tax system, reduce that administrative burden, and that will actually enhance bottom line productivity, reduce administrative burden, so we can focus on selling our goods and services. What needs to be done? How quickly does it need to be done as it relates to a rehaul of our tax system in our nation? Kerry-Lynne.
I know you've been a leader in this, and I thank you for that. As a former Minister of National Revenue, I can tell you that in my time in that portfolio, I felt there was a real need for a streamlining of our tax system and a need for further simplification. Over the years, we seem to have gone into these little target tax credits as a way to appeal to this group and that, and they're helpful, they do help. But overall, the burden is tremendous. The bureaucratic red tape that has been piled on since we've had the present government is very concerning to me. It was something we fought against when we were government. On Treasury Board, you could not bring in a new regulation that affected small business without losing two. It was a 2-for-1 rule, not a 1-for-1 rule. We took it very seriously. That needs to happen again because the red tape has proliferated. Also, reporting. I won the I was awarded the Canadian Federation of Independent Business Golden Scissors Award. They actually gave me golden scissors for cutting red tape. The main reason they gave it to me over others was because we cut out one huge reporting that small business had to do and made it monthly instead of bi-monthly. That seems so simple. The taxpayer and the corporate taxpayer, and we can do it again. But yes, it should be done whenever the next opportunity is, meaning right away or after a next election. It should be a priority. It has to be. It's become too complicated, too expensive, and too onerous.
Tamara.
Well, Anita, you are preaching to the choir. You're singing my tune. I cannot believe, when we have a tax code like that's that thick and we're wasting entrepreneurial time and energy on uber complicated tax forms. It's just an incredible waste. So as Kerry-Lynne says, we have got to get rid of red tape. We've got to get rid of the hurdles that get in the way of good entrepreneurs creating jobs for our neighbors. I'd love to see that we go back to income splitting. I think that for too long, small businesses have been, they end up being slaves to the kind of red tape that's out there. We can't get anything done. So the sooner that we can start hitting down like a 2-for-1 red tape, I would love that. That'd be awesome. So there you go.
It really is a pathway towards economic recovery as well, and we hope you advocate for that on the Hill. So very quickly, in 1 minute, your closing comments before we adjourn. Kerry-Lynne.
Well, I just want to thank you again for this opportunity. It's been great. I'm sure there's lots of questions we didn't get to. So you can always invite us back. But, these are very important conversations. We have to figure all this out together. They say we're in it together. Well, we're also out of it together. We have to find ways to work together. And I'm open to any and all suggestions. I certainly follow what you're doing in the Board of Trade, but individuals can also let us as MPs know your thoughts and ideas and maybe something innovative we haven't thought of yet. But we, as a group in opposition, we absolutely believe in lower corporate taxes, less red tape for business, and let the entrepreneurial Canadian get out there and do what they do best, which is innovate and create and make jobs.
Thank you so much. Tamara.
Well, thank you very much. And I really want to do a special shout out to all the small businesses because I know that this has probably been the hardest thing that they have ever had to go through. People have, worked night and day. They had no staff, so they had to do everything and the kitchen sink. They were doing the dishes at night. They were prepping food, and in the morning they'd get back in and they'd have to, do all the little things that normally they would have other staff to do. And that's how small family businesses work. Mom, dad, kids, they all get in there and they try to get stuff done. And it's been heartbreaking to get out and see how stressed people are. But I just want to say thank you for sticking with us, continuing to try and create those jobs. I know that your dreams are on the line, and we are going to be working very, very hard as Conservatives to ensure that your dreams stay alive.
Thank you, Tamara. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the conclusion of our session this afternoon. The session is being recorded, and we will send you the link. And thank you so much for being here with the Surrey Board of Trade, Surrey City Building Business Organization.